Have I got problems in my business that I need to fix, Corona aside?
We can't protect every business.
Jobs are under threat of going.
These are tough times, and there will be more to come.
Hi, I'm Tara Evans, Digital Consumer Editor at The Sun, and I'm here with small business expert and entrepreneur Matt Haycox. We're going to be here every week with Matt answering your small business questions. And as you can see, we're doing it remotely. But there's never been a more important time for us to launch this series. So make sure you check back every week and send us your questions below. So Matt, tell me a bit more about yourself.
Well, Tara, I always like to describe myself as an entrepreneur and businessman first, investor and funder of late, but I always say I'm the guy who's made many mistakes, so my clients and my audience don't have to. So, I guess I've seen the highs and lows of business. I've made a lot of money, I've lost a lot of money, and I've come back stronger, and I try and pass my message and my learnings onto the people that I work with and advise, so that they can have a faster and more profitable business journey.
So Matt, I'm really interested to hear a bit more about your story. You've really been where a lot of small business owners are before, right now, right?
I certainly have. 2008, I remember it very well. I was 27 at the time then. My business story goes a long way back before then. I've always been eager to work in business, eager to start business, and hungry to make money from a young age. I dabbled, I guess, as all young and wannabe entrepreneurs do, from the ages of 14, 16, 18. But I was first really in business from 18 onwards. And I guess my glory years, as I call them, were from 2002, 2003 through to 2007, 2008. And during that time, it was a time of, I guess, what anyone who was there to remember it will remember as easy money, as I used to call it. There was far too much liquidity in the markets. Lenders were keen to lend, consumers were very keen to spend, and I guess it was almost an unrealistic or certainly unsustainable business climate. But I guess my problem was it was my first cycle in business. I'd never experienced the downs. It was almost too easy for me at that time, and I guess I found it easy to start businesses, easy to get customers, and easy to borrow money. It built up to a kind of a fantastic empire, for want of a better word. By mid-June 2008, I had businesses in leisure, in retail, in finance, in events. I was making a lot of money personally. I had staff and operations all over the UK, and then the credit crunch started. I had no wool on my back. I had no method of coping, and literally within the space of, I say 2 months, it was probably even shorter. I went from riding high, thinking nothing could probably even get any better, to realizing at that point nothing could probably get any worse for me. All my businesses were put into administration. I was declared personally bankrupt, and I had a daughter who was 1 year old at the time, a wife, and it was like, wow, what do we do now? How do we even put food on the table?
Yeah, a real crisis situation, and probably quite similar to how a lot of small business owners are right now. And how do you feel what do you think about how Corona is affecting small businesses?
Well, I think, first of all, a big parallel from my circumstances at the time, or one of the learnings I've definitely had as to some of the cause of my problems back in 2008, were it's really important to be both honest with yourself and about your business, to actually work out if you even have a viable business model. And I know that was certainly something I was guilty of back in 2008. We'd been in a climate where capital was easily available. People wanted to lend, or banks didn't want businesses to go bust. And that is, for me, my day job, like I say, is I'm a lender and investor in small businesses all over the UK. So I see many businesses, day in, day out, week in, week out, which are just completely unviable and unsustainable businesses, but they've been allowed to continue because there's been so many new lenders in the marketplace that have been keen to get capital out, that there's always been someone to provide a bit more money, to give this business another couple of weeks life. And for me, what's happened, okay, look, we're 3 or 4 weeks into the lockdown situation now, but something I've been saying at the very beginning of lockdown is that for businesses that were complaining of the business problems, on day one, these aren't problems that have been caused by Corona itself. These are fundamental problems within people's business models. The fact that a large percentage of UK SME has been teetering on the brink of bankruptcy for a long time. The fact that business owners haven't got enough capital on the balance sheet, or that self-employed entrepreneurs haven't got enough cash reserves in the bank, and obviously as time goes on now, that is going to make a difference, and some of the stronger businesses are going to be affected too. And I really think it's very important to use this time as a real kind of wake up and honesty call to actually say, have I got problems in my business that I need to fix, Corona aside?
Things are a little bit different though than back in 2008, right? Because we are seeing the banks starting to help small businesses. The government has definitely, been quite strong about how it feels the banks should be lending. They've put, certain funds in place. What help is out there?
Well, I think it's important to say that, in theory, there is a lot of assistance out there. There's certainly talk of a lot of assistance. Whether or not businesses are actually seeing this money move to their bank accounts is to be debated, but yes, on the face of it, there is a fantastic amount of government assistance and intervention available, which I think as well is probably going to grow as time goes on. I mean, again, I know a lot of people were complaining in the early days of the lockdown happening and the Corona situation starting to kick in that enough hadn't been done by the government, but I think the government have to assess things on a day-by-day basis, week-by-week basis, and as new problems have occurred or new things have been learnt, they've been able to come to the forefront and bring the grants, bring the loans, bring the deferrals and the subsidies that we've now come to understand. I mean, so some of the key things that are available for businesses are the likes of the Corona business loan, business interruption loan scheme. We've got grants available to small businesses. We've got deferrals on tax, on VAT and other taxation. We've got up to 12 months rates relief for certain businesses. We've got the Corona job loss scheme. There's many things available. But again, going back to one of my earlier points, it's important to understand that all of these schemes, the spirit of them is that they are there to protect and preserve viable businesses and viable jobs during this Corona business interruption. That they're not there to prop up businesses that never worked out in the first place.
So can small businesses furlough staff? Is that something that's open to them? Is that option out there?
Yeah, small businesses and large businesses alike are able to furlough staff. Furloughing is a concept and a word that I'm sure most people have probably never heard of up until 6, 7, 8 weeks ago. But what in its simplest form, what that scheme allows you to do is to send your staff home without losing them for the long term, and the government scheme will pay up to 80%. Will pay 80% of their wages up to a maximum of £2,500. So it obviously allows us to retain the kind of core and good workforce that the businesses have got, but put them on pause for a few months while this situation plays out. And also, I think it's important to get across the point that a similar scheme exists for self-employed businesses, self-employed people as well. So that similar scenario of 80% of your profit, not your wage, up to a maximum of £2,500 a month is also available.
So you spoke a little bit about the business interruption loan that's available. I know that there are lots of small business, thousands and tens of thousands of small businesses struggling to get that loan. What can they do right now?
Well, here's the thing. I think this goes back to one of the points I was making earlier, that this business loan interruption scheme is specifically to preserve businesses and help businesses that are profitable, viable businesses that have been affected specifically by Corona. So there's a whole host of hurdles to jump over to qualify for these loans. I mean, too long to go into right now, but ultimately the business has to have been profitable, viable, sustainable beforehand, and it just has to have been interrupted by Corona. Now, just because you may not qualify for that scheme doesn't mean other loan options aren't available to you. They're just not loans that are covered under the government guarantee scheme. Lenders are still working in theory as normal. It's just that the loans you would be applying for would not necessarily be the ones that were government backed.
So what do you do if? What else can you do? Do you change your business? I mean, I've seen that Leon, they're not a small business, but they've been delivering food boxes, and some of my local pubs have opened up as corner shops. Is now a good time to try and pivot?
Now is the best time to think about pivoting, because I think, we've got a lot of time. Well, certain businesses and certain entrepreneurs particularly have got a lot of time available to them because some of their businesses aren't trading at all, to be able to actually look at their business model, look if there's changes that they should have made before, look if there's new methods of marketing to customers, look if there's new methods of delivery. Can we take the business online from being offline? Can we branch out into different areas of business that we may not have considered before? So I think despite all the fear and negativity in the current situation, there are so many opportunities out there for positive, creative, open-minded entrepreneurs to take advantage of. And like you say, you mentioned Leon, you mentioned your local pub. I'm sure we've all seen examples of people having to adapt. Whether that's restaurants becoming takeaways for the time being. I speak to a lot of entrepreneurs on a daily basis over social media. And I've come across or advised, for example, photographers who used to only do wedding and event photography, who are now doing an online editing service and an online photography lessons. I've talked to beauticians who used to physically do massage and manicure and pedicure, who are now selling product online. And what started off for a lot of these people as, I guess, just a way to survive and put food on the table over the weeks or months that we're in lockdown, they've now realised that this is actually either a viable addition to their business model, or there are fundamental changes that they can make to their business model to actually come out of this a better business than they went in. And I think the last thing I'd say, that for business owners who are unable to pivot their existing model, or to unable to find other methods of going online or delivering their service during this situation, now is the time to be marketing the living daylights out of your business. We never have we had a time, nor will we ever have a time, where there are so many eyeballs sat at home gagging to consume content, whether that's on social media, whether that's online magazines, online newspapers. Now is the time to be marketing yourself, marketing your business, and making sure that pipeline is full for when lockdown is over.
Yeah, is that a thing that people should be doing as well? Like preparing, it's so hard. How do you know when this is going to end? How do you know when things are going to pick up? What can people do to prepare for if I dare say it, the end of lockdown?
Well, look, we don't know when it's going to end, but we do know it is going to end, and that's something important to appreciate. With every crisis situation, with every problem, with every black day, the day always comes after night, and ultimately, we are all going to be released from our houses. Business will go back to some sense of normality. We can debate how long it's going to take to get back to normality, but there is going to be a day in the not too distant future where we can all go back to work again. So anyone who is not sat at home now preparing for that, is wasting a phenomenal opportunity to take advantage of it when it comes out, and also potentially jeopardising their ability to ever recover from this. I guess an analogy would almost be, like with a sports person who is sat at home now, either training or not training. They can be training and coming out of this ready to continue to do business as they were before, or potentially even better, do sport as they were before, or potentially even better, or they can be sat at home eating chocolate, doing no exercise whatsoever, and potentially come out of this unable to ever compete at that level they were before we went into this. So it's really important to be making the most of this time during lockdown. Whether you're an existing business owner, whether you're a big business, small business, an entrepreneur, or someone who has thought about having an entrepreneurial career ahead of you, now is the time that you have got to prepare and make the most of this situation.
So you spoke a little bit about having a reality check, right? is your business viable? Are you going to get any of this help? Is your business profitable, without this whole situation? What happens if you've explored every single avenue and, you're facing that situation of, dissolving your business or deciding to shut down? Like, you might have staff members. Like, how do you navigate that in the right way? And I know there's probably no right way to do it, but, how can people get over it?
Well, I think, I'm glad you asked the last bit of the question, because I guess it's difficult / impossible for me to give specific answers to everybody's individual circumstances of what they can do with their own personal business. But yes, if your business has reached a stage where it is unviable, that there is no recovery, there is no turnaround. A couple of important points for me to get across. First of all, it's the sooner you can accept and realise that, the better, because too many business owners, and listen, I talk from experience. Like I say, in 2008 I was somebody who had businesses that went into administration, that went into liquidation, and if I look back, if I'm honest with myself, some of those businesses became unviable or unsustainable months before I actually came to that realisation. So the quicker you can accept and acknowledge that problem, the quicker you can then adapt and take the right professional help and make the right plans for the future. So that's very important point number one. And the second important point to appreciate is that there is life after business failure. There is life after bankruptcy. Do not let anybody tell you that this is the end of your career, that this is the end of your dreams, the end of your creativity. I was somebody sat, looking at a baby daughter, looking at a wife, thinking, how am I going to pay the mortgage? How am I going to go forward from here? And I knew, I don't have any magic tricks or special motivational answers for people, other than the fact that I didn't want to allow that to happen to myself. I wasn't going to allow other people's opinions of bankruptcy, of negative financial situations, people who've probably never been in that situation themselves and have got no qualification whatsoever to be able to cast their opinions. I was never going to let that stop me living my dreams, and that is the most important thing I can get across to anyone listening to this now, that the sooner you acknowledge you've got a business problem, the sooner you can fix it, even if that is a terminal situation for that particular business. But there is a pivot, there is a new business, there is a new business idea, and you are certainly not written off, so do not let anybody tell you that.
And what have been, during, this whole lockdown situation, what have been some of your examples of businesses that have really pivoted, that have really been inspirational? Have you got any that you want to share with us?
Well, earlier in this chat, I mentioned to you, for example, a photographer who was doing events, corporate events, weddings, and is now doing online photography lessons. I've dealt with businesses that were either delivering a physical product from a retail store and have now gone online, and again, probably should have gone online a long time ago, and this has been a fantastic kind of kick up the behind, to give them the impetus to do what they should have already done. And again, what I'm seeing with bigger businesses is the fact that they're now really embracing the work from home culture, and I think businesses who never wanted to accept it before, or businesses who were probably unwilling to want to work with a distributed, decentralized workforce, are now starting to work out how they can manage and monitor the staff properly. And I know there's going to be a lot of businesses that come out of this thinking, why do I have the big office that I've currently got? Do I need an office at all? And like I say, I think, for the businesses that were terminal anyway, Corona has been, the final nail in the coffin for them. But for businesses that have got sound fundamentals, for entrepreneurs who are prepared to always be learning, to always be, looking for new ways to deliver their product and for new ways to work, this time has provided opportunity. And I think when we come out of this, the business world won't be the same. We're doing this conversation now, obviously remotely. How many businesses really embraced remote communication 8 weeks ago? They didn't, even though it's been around for probably years. Realistically, nobody used it properly. I guarantee you there's going to be so many businesses now, probably the vast majority of businesses, that come back out of this and say, why are we doing physical meetings anymore? We can be so much more efficient and save so much more money with the likes of Zoom or FaceTime or whatever they're going to use. And we can give example after example of that. The key is acceptance, embracing, and change.
Great. Thanks so much, Matt. And thanks everyone for watching. Make sure you check back next week for the latest episode.